Welcome to the Chapelcast. This is a bi-weekly podcast about the people and the life of the chapel. Subscribe to us from anywhere you listen to your podcasts and follow us on Instagram at the Chapelcast or go to our website, thechapel.org.
Hello, Chapel family. Welcome to another Chapelcast. Today, I'm excited to have Michael Hubner here with us. We'll talk about this in a minute, but Michael's been a part of the chapel for a long time, and we're very glad for that. He's also is an elder of the chapel and will be an elder of the chapel again, which I'm personally excited about to have him back on the board. So, Michael, welcome.
As am I. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thanks.
It's a great opportunity.
So let's start with, as executive pastor, I'm always interested in hearing how people came to the chapel and what their first impressions were. So talk about the first time you came here and how you got connected in the chapel.
Well, way back in the early 80s,
okay,
we had my oldest daughter, who was a toddler, and Gloria and I were starting to think seriously about what direction we were going to take for the spiritual growth of ourselves and our families. We came from very diverse backgrounds. Gloria was raised in a Jewish family. I was raised in a Roman Catholic family.
Wow.
I had, by that time, I had my issues with how I was raised in the Roman Catholic faith and the instruction, but I didn't quite know what I was searching for except for a connection with God that I felt I did not have, and that I must be able to find somehow, some way, but very undefined, but searching.
That's good.
Gloria was a dental hygienist, and at one of her places of work, there was a woman who began to influence her about coming to Jacksonville Chapel. So she's working on my Jewish wife in the dental office.
Great.
And slowly but surely, like, Gloria would mention it to me. And I remember, excuse me, I remember how I felt when she was saying we should go to Jacksonville Chapel, because I was saying, well, honey, I used to play basketball there when I was a kid.
Get out.
And I remember listening to the Bible stories, which was the price of admission.
Sure.
Which was great. And I just said to her, I'm not sure you'll be comfortable there. And really it was, I'm not sure I'll be comfortable there.
Got it.
But push back a little bit, as life would have it. Gloria has tremendous influence over me.
That's a good thing.
So we came to visit in the chapel. And of course, I saw friends because I grew up in the area. I saw people I knew. We were welcomed warmly. We had a wonderful first visit to the chapel. Earl Comfort was in the pulpit, preached a vintage Earl message, which was both exhilarating and confusing because I thought it can't be that easy.
Right.
You know, remember my background.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, it sounded great, but wow, is that really possible? And so we had a little hiatus. We came a couple times. We then didn't come, just kind of relaxed. And one day, that same sweet little girl was sitting in the car, and she said, can we go back to the Jack and Jill Chapel? So I said, okay, there's something working here. So we went back to Jacksonville Chapel, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's amazing.
We've raised our family, our 3 kids, our grandkids. Everybody's been influenced by the chapel.
That's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how at that time God was working on you, kind of prompting you. What was that like? What questions were going through your head? What were you kind of wrestling with that said, maybe I need to try something else?
Well, I was told by a friend of mine who was a priest that probably what I was missing was a personal relationship with Christ.
How about that?
No priest had ever told me anything like that. Wow. Quite the opposite. There was always something in between me and God that I couldn't either get through or I had to use as an intermediary to get to God. And he said that to me. He said that to me years before we started coming to the chapel. I was in college, actually. But from that moment forward, I sort of, in an unstructured way, thought I need to find out how to have a personal relationship with Christ. Wow. I just don't know how to do it.
That's great.
You know,
and that's what started it. That's what started the thought.
Started it.
That's fantastic. You mentioned college, which I don't really want to talk about it because it was Villanova.
Yeah.
And, my Big East nemesis, since I'm a Seton Hall
I mean,
guy.
the 3-time NCAA champions.
Thank you for that.
Okay. I wasn't sure we were talking about the same Villanova.
Yes, you made that perfectly clear. This is a big year for us, though.
It is.
She was going to do well this year. But anyway, enough basketball. So you did graduate from Villanova and went to law school.
I went to law school in New York at St. John's University.
Wow, another basketball powerhouse.
Well, just had to make sure the out-of-class entertainment was up to par.
That's awesome. And then became a lawyer.
Yes.
And so now, though, after doing that for many years, you were elected as a judge.
Not elected.
Okay.
In New Jersey, judges are appointed. They're appointed by the governor's office and have to go through a more serious vetting than I've ever thought possible, but go through a process, and ultimately, if you're confirmed, you go to the full Senate. The Senate votes it.
Wow.
And
so that's the process you've gone through.
I have gone through it twice.
Wow.
Because after you're on the bench for 7 years, you have a tenure hearing, and you repeat the whole cycle of what you did. So
fantastic. So talk about that a little bit. Help us understand where you are a judge and what that's
I'm
like
a Superior Court judge of the state of New Jersey, which is the statewide trial court. You're based in a particular venue. In my case, it's Morris County. But I currently divide my time between Morris County and Sussex County up in Newton, which is the county seat.
Okay.
Because I'm the presiding drug court judge. And prior to what I currently do, I'll cycle back to that. I was in the family division, which handles all sorts of cases, as if you would imagine, whether matrimonial cases, juvenile issues. And I was in civil as well, which just hearing jury trials. So I've had the full cycle, which was sort of my dream come true when I decided to make myself available to this when asked if I would be interested. I was 59 years old.
Wow.
It was almost 8 years ago in a couple of weeks. And I thought about it, and I said, I've really done things that I've wanted to do with my law firm. Put together a successful group of folks, would feel very well that the legacy of our firm would be handled well without me, and I could actually get a chance to reinvent myself.
Wow. That's exciting.
It was a challenge in my mind to do this because I was used to being an advocate. So whatever the best position was for my client, you advocated it and you pressed it forward. And many times we'd leave a room and say, I really wouldn't want to be the judge on this call.
Wow.
But I wanted to try it.
That's amazing.
I'm very gratified that I have, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
So I want to go back to that because that's fascinating. But making that shift at 59 at any age is tough, right? But making that shift, was that stressful? Was it a hard decision to go from something you'd known for many, many years, been successful at, to say, okay, I will try this?
Yes. But it was, I want to say, I'm compelled to say stressful in a good way. It felt very challenging, and you don't know how to be a judge. You have to start the experience and take it solemnly and soberly and gain your experience and your traction being a judge. As I said, it's very different than being an advocate.
Yes.
You have to find the ultimate facts in a case that you believe to be true and apply the law. So it was a great challenge. I like to think I'm getting better each day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you mentioned family court. And I remember when you were there, we talked about it a couple of times, but I would imagine that's got to be heartbreaking duty for sometimes.
Very difficult stories.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're talk about stress.
Yes.
These are folks, we often said in a jocular manner that in the criminal division, you find people who are not very good people, but on their best behavior. In family, you find very good people who are behaving perhaps either badly or so emotionally that things are out of control.
Wow.
And family is a microcosm of the many things and stresses that people go through in life. I mean, marriages divide, which is truly unfortunate. Children are greatly affected. I said part of family was also the juvenile system. So you'd see regularly young men and young women who were starting hopefully not a career in crime, but making their mark at a young age.
Wow.
So you're looking for every opportunity to correct course and to make assets available to them to be able to do so.
That's a wonderful thing. I think it would be, it'd be very, very challenging. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I'm wired to do that. But because there's times probably there's times when you need to bring justice, but there's also times for mercy.
Yes.
And how do you do that in real time in the situation? How do you balance the two, or how do you do what's right, not just per the law, but per the individual?
Well, you take the discretion that you do have as a judge to get some traction in solutions that are equitable. That maybe you draw. When I say equity, it's not the letter of the law that you're applying. You're using some discretion to make sure the application of the law or the result or the solution or the outcome recognizes some special circumstances that might be available in that situation. As a drug court judge, which you're involved in recovery.
Yes.
I wish they called it recovery court instead of drug court. But it's a chance for people with significant criminal histories that are drug driven to seek a programs of recovery, to be successful, and to come out the other end of a few years of drug court probation able to reunite with their families, get jobs. Many of the drug court people who graduate are eligible for what's called a drug court expungement. Their entire criminal history is eradicated as a reward for going through a very difficult program and graduating. You can only graduate if there's significant evidence that you've changed your life and remained drug-free, and you've changed a lot of things about yourself, which
That's
you need
amazing.
to do with you dealing with addiction. I've taken some opportunities where an individual is standing in front of me where I say to him, let's call him Jim. I say to him, Jim, do you have any idea what grace is? And most don't have a quick definition.
Sure.
And I said, I'm going to make it simple for you. It's something that's beneficial in your life that you get and you didn't earn it.
Amen.
You just get it. So they nod their heads and I'll say, so here comes Hubner's rule. Don't waste grace.
That's awesome.
So I'm able to intertwine my Christian convictions. I don't proselytize from the bench.
Sure.
I'd be front page news, I guess. But I also don't shy away from discussions of faith, because in recovery especially, a spiritual element to your recovery can be very important. I can't necessarily drive somebody to something, but I will say I have an abiding faith in God, and I'm here to tell you it's an integral part of everything that I do. Wow. So I hope that you can find something like that. Think about it. Respond to the influences in your life that are leading you to a spiritual connection.
So you've talked about how your faith informs your work. Are there instances where your work and what you've experienced in the courtroom has informed your faith the other way? Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying.
Like, are there things that you think about faith differently? Not that anything would change, but you get a different perspective on justice and mercy and grace because of what you do every day.
Yes. I mean, I hadn't thought about it specifically, but the short answer to that is yes. And I would say it's helped me in the way that I will give my testimony to somebody. I've learned and confirmed, at least in my experience, that a logical, simple, factual presentation is far more powerful than trying to explain the history of the world.
That's so good.
And I might have had a tendency to explain the history of the world before, and now I get right to it.
That's good.
And I use myself. I find that a great way to open a door is to make sure you just talk about what your faith has done for you.
Amen.
And how it changed you. Non-threatening. Most people want to listen to that and hear that instead of telling them what they need to do.
That is so good, Michael. That's excellent. Yeah, people will come up to me as a pastor and in the congregation will say, I can't share my faith at work. I don't know enough. What if they ask me this? What if they ask me that? And the apologetics and all that is very important and very good, but you don't need that to tell what God's done in your life.
Right.
And nobody can argue with that. That's what I tell them. You be at peace here. Nobody can argue with what you're saying God's done in your life. It's not based on facts. It's based on the truth of what's happened in your life.
We have plenty of time for the deep dive if that person stays connected to you and wants to know more.
That's true. That's excellent. You shared with some of us some of the challenges you're going through now, personally. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I know what it's meant to me to hear you share of what you're going through and what God's teaching you through that and how you're drawing closer to Him through that. Can you share a little bit about some of your recent health struggles?
Okay. Well, up until a couple of years ago, I didn't really have any. But lo and behold, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And initially, it's obvious, it's a hard thing to hear. But initially, I was probably more scared of that diagnosis than I might have thought I would be.
Sure.
But I don't know how I could praise my wife, Gloria, more than to say she is my soulmate. She was delivered to me by God and who has blessed our marriage for these many years. And she is a stalwart for me. She steadied me. She knows how to pull the best out of me, and was encouraging. And I got good advice up front. And so in the couple short years or almost 2 years since the diagnosis, there's the combination of this recognition of some of the things that are changing. It's nothing radical, but it's there.
Okay.
And it's called a progressive disease, which kind of is contraindicated. But it means things will continue to develop with it. But be that as it may, they don't know why it goes slow with some and not with others. So that's a subject of prayer.
Amen.
But I've transitioned. What's become very healthy for me lately is just in a lot of prayer about it. I've transitioned from concentrating my prayer on asking for God's, blessings and mercies and maybe curative prayer to prayer that God shows me who He wants me to be with this disease, not how to conquer Parkinson's or how, to cure Parkinson's. It's who do you want me to be with this disease? How can I be with Parkinson's? How can I glorify you with carrying around this disease and having this thing in my life? So I'm pretty excited about that, actually.
That's great. That's a great lesson for all of us. Just to ask God to help us do more of what He's given us, where He's placed us, the situations we're in right now, rather than looking for a way out of them.
Yeah, in the time that I've been directing prayer to having God show me the path of how to be and who to be with Parkinson's disease, my oldest daughter, Erin, started training for a marathon. She's running the Philadelphia Marathon this weekend. She dedicated it to her dad and Parkinson's disease, is on a team with Parkinson's disease supporters. They're raising money. She sent a picture around on the internet, and I said,
so great.
Thank you, God.
Amen.
Because this is opening doors where we can use it to communicate and use it for, some really common good.
That's great. Well, Michael, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate the wisdom.
Been better for me.
But I appreciate you sharing this, and it's been good to get to know you a bit more.
Yep.
And I'm glad you're part of the chapel.
I'm glad to be part of the chapel, and I love all you guys. So
Thanks.
Thanks for doing the work you do.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. This podcast is also available on video. Just head over to YouTube and search for The Chapelcast.